Hi everyone, welcome back to Gdaynamaste. Today I'm actually going to be answering some questions that my followers on Instagram have asked me. I did a Ask Me Anything question box thing. And I also put an anonymous link, which is like this app where you can write anonymous questions to someone and they don't know who it's from. So yeah, I did that as well as an Ask Me Anything box on Instagram and got a bunch of very interesting questions, kind of rude questions, and also some like very commonly asked questions too. So yes, that's what I'm going to be doing today. So let's go. Some really simple ones to start off with. The first one is, what is my favorite movie? I actually kind of change what my favorite things are a lot. So when I was growing up and for a very long time, my favorite movies were definitely the Harry Potter series. It's also my favorite book, but also I loved Back to the Future, which, mind you, Future was I think 2018. So it's a little bit scary now. We're in 2022 and don't have flying cars like that. So yeah, the Back to the Future trilogy, absolutely loved it, and Harry Potter. As for Bollywood or Hindi movies, I definitely have a favorite out of all of those, and it's the movie Dil Dhadkne Do. I just love it. I've seen it like 4 times, and my friends who come to our parties or that I party with will tell you that I love dancing to the songs from that movie. So yeah, that's my favorite Bollywood movie by far. Next one, again, very simple. What's my favorite TV show? I have 2. Law and Order SVU, or Special Victims Unit. I think that has something like 21, 22 seasons now. It's been on for more than half of my life. I've been watching it since I was like 15 or 16. So that and Grey's Anatomy, but I haven't really watched the latest season. I didn't watch the latest season at all, actually, because it's just a bit boring now, which is sad. The earlier seasons definitely were very intense and were my favorite seasons, but yeah, they're my, oh, hello. They're my favorite. That's my favorite shows. Some more recent ones that I've really enjoyed: Grace and Frankie, Schitt's Creek. I've watched this fantasy one recently called Shadow and Bone, based on a book that I read, and I loved that. And I've just started watching The Witcher, and I'm watching House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel. This one is going to be a little bit of a boring answer, but the question is, what have I gotten detention for? I don't think I ever got detention. I was a pretty good kid at school. I wasn't naughty or anything. Mum, if you're watching this, did I ever get detention for anything? Because I really don't remember. Like sometimes I was like maybe a little bit naughty and I got like separated from my friends from like talking too much. I did get in trouble a lot for talking too much though. So nothing's really changed there. But yeah, I never like had to do like after school detention or like lunchtime detention or anything. I was a pretty good kid. I don't know if this question was aimed at me or Sunil, because it was also posted when I did a different Ask Me Anything or Ask Sunil Anything for another video I'll be doing. But the question was, who are you trying to vote for in 2024? Assuming it's an Indian elections, I'm not allowed to vote. So even though I have my OCI card, if you haven't watched the video of how I got my OCI card, have a look up top. Yeah, it doesn't give me rights to vote. So yeah, I won't be voting anyway. I can't even vote in Australia anymore because I told the government that I would be leaving the country like indefinitely. And if you're leaving the country longer than 12 months, they take you off the voting board kind of thing. And if we ever go back to Australia, then I just have to like re-register after 6 months. So yeah, can't vote. Leads on to the next question. Do Sunil and I have any plans to eventually go back to Australia? And it's not something that we've really discussed, to be honest. I mean, yes, I definitely miss it, and it's always going to be half of my heart and half of, who I am. But India is also home now. So, I mean, I haven't even gone back for a vacation yet. That's going to change soon. But it's been over 3 years and I haven't even been back to Australia. So I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know if I'm going to get like reverse culture shock or if things are going to be like very different for me because I've been living like an Indian lifestyle for a very long time. We have talked about, and even with my in-laws too, that eventually, like when we have children, maybe moving to Australia for better education and things like that and better upbringing. But yeah, it's not something that we've discussed in certain because, we want to be able to go and visit there first and see what it's like. And then maybe we can sort of decide. But also I've said to Sunil, I don't want to go anywhere without my dogs. And getting dogs to Australia, it's very strict. Australia's just very strict in general, whether it is immigration or, bringing in, food or raw items into the country. They're strict on everything and including pets. So Australia, like your pets need to be quarantined for like 3 months before they enter the country, and they have to be quarantined in a country that's on their list of countries that are safe. India is not one of those countries, so it's not like my dogs could just quarantine here and then we take them to Australia. The closest country is Dubai, so we'd have to fly with the dogs from here to Dubai and then leave them in Dubai for quarantine, which is something like, I don't know, $10,000 per dog, and then eventually get them to Australia where they're quarantined again. So it's like a really big effort. And I've already said, like, I can't imagine my life without these guys. So yeah, basically to answer the question, no, not in the short term. We're not planning on moving back, but who knows what the future holds. Kind of leads on to the next question, which I did get asked like 3 times. Are we eventually planning on kids? Do we want kids? So yes, the answer is yes, we do. I do want children, but not yet. I feel like I'm not ready. There's, Mommy, these 2 are enough. Having dogs is enough for now, but I just don't feel like I'm ready for children. I feel like a child myself most of the time. Like, how can I, a child, be having children? But yeah, so, that's a very kind of simple answer. Also, I did talk about it a little bit in my BPD video, that genetically you can pass on, I guess, like, I don't really know the scientific terms, but to like talk about it really briefly, my mental health kind of issues or my mental problems, if I don't work on resolving them or healing myself, I can genetically pass those on to future children. And that's not something that I want to do, obviously. So that kind of scares me a little bit about wanting to have children right now because I don't feel like I'm mentally ready for that. So yeah. I also got another question about this, which I just want to say is extremely rude, sorry, but I'll put it up here what the question said. There is a right and a wrong way to ask this question. The first 2 that I got where people were asking, are you planning on having kids eventually or do you want to have children? I don't mind answering those because that, I would be curious too. But this is not okay because just assuming that that everyone wants to have children is not okay. You also don't know what other people are going through. Because I'm not trying for children right now, I don't know if it's going to be hard for me. I don't know if I'm going to have any issues trying to fall pregnant. Some women do, and asking this question can be extremely harmful and extremely hurtful. So I just want to say to whoever asked this, be very careful about the wording that you say by just assuming like, why are you not having children now? Why are you not having kids now? It's very, very rude and inconsiderate. Because what happens if I was? What happens if I was trying to have children? And I was struggling, maybe we were having some fertility issues. Like that could be really, really devastating, especially like with my own like mental health problems. That could be a huge trigger. It's just lucky that I'm not having those issues that I know of. But yeah, be very careful when asking this question. It's a very, very sensitive topic. And just because you're writing it behind an anonymous app doesn't give you the right to ask it in this kind of tone and way. It's not good. All these questions are kind of leading into each other, but the next one is, what is my biggest fear? What is my biggest fear? And I kind of have 2. One is actually about what I was just talking about with kids. I'm scared I'm going to pass on like my mental health issues or problems to my future children. That is like a huge fear of mine. And again, why I'm also scared to have kids right now, because I don't feel like I'm mentally ready for that. I'm just scared I'm going to pass on the craziness. I'm scared I'm going to pass on like my unresolved trauma. And I'm going to pass on the issues that come with that. Another fear for me has only really come up maybe the last few weeks since since I saw my psychiatrist last, and she told me that I can start coming off my medication completely and my treatment's going to be finished, which is really, really exciting. But at the same time, it's really, really freaking scary because I kind of feel like, what happens if I'm not fully healed? What happens if like I go back to how I was or who the person I was before I started my treatment? And that's something that really scares me because looking back now, like I wasn't mentally healthy and like I wasn't really happy and I wasn't a very nice person either. And I'm so scared that like when my medication stops, I'm just going to like turn into that person again. And I've had like 3 breakdowns in the last 2 weeks about this topic where I've just been really, really scared that what happens if finishing my medication is not the right decision for me right now, but my doctor seems to think it is, and she's the professional. So also having a fear of something generally means that it's probably the right decision. I have to kind of face that fear. So, and I do know that with BPD, it's a lifelong illness. It's a lifelong disorder. So it is something that I have to work on forever, work on my emotions, work on regulating my moods. I've just been having the aid of medication for the last 2 and a bit years. So now I just have to learn to do that by myself. I am going to start seeing a psychologist again just to help me with that transition because it is something that really, really frightens me a lot. Another anonymous one, worst date I've ever been on. To be honest, I haven't really had bad dates. I'm someone that usually dates for long term. So like another question I got, I'm going to tie this in, is how many people did I date before I got hitched or before I got married? I haven't really had any bad dates. I was in a long-term relationship for 4 years when I was 18. Then I had another long-term relationship for 4 years, and then I dated someone else for 4 months. Those last 2 relationships are the ones I've talked about that were really traumatic for me, but those were over a period of time. It wasn't like one specific instance. And then I met Sunil. So I haven't really had any bad dates, which is pretty lucky for me because I know some women have some really terrible experiences. The next question is that basically they said you're perfect, or my perfect Indianisation. I wouldn't say that it's a perfect, like I wouldn't say that like I'm a perfect Indian because I'm not Indian, right? I like to think that I've adapted quite well. There's still a lot of things I struggle with. And I think I will struggle with a lot of things because new things are going to keep coming up. I'm not in my home country. So I think there's always going to be things that come up that's going to be a clash of cultures or difference in cultures. It still happens with Sunil and I where there's like a misunderstanding. He perceives something as rude, but I don't, because in Australia it's not rude, but here it is, and vice versa. And so we're always navigating those. So I wouldn't say that it's like a perfect Indianisation. I do believe that I try and be as respectful as I can to the country that I'm living in and the country I call home and the culture that I'm living in, but definitely not perfect. I still have a lot of things to learn and a long way to go. So I know this was probably meant to be taken as a compliment, so thank you. But I think I still have a long way to go before, well, no one can be perfect anyway. So I still have a lot of learning to do and a lot of growing to do. And while, again, I've mostly adjusted to the best of my abilities so far, I think there's still a lot to learn. How do I earn in India? So I was not allowed to work until I got my OCI card, which I just got approved like a month and a half ago. So I'm sort of just trying to figure things out. I'm pretty picky with the kind of work that I want. I don't want to get like a company job where I'm like in the office 5 days, 6 days a week, 40 hours a week or whatever. I currently work on Cambly, which is a US-based English tutoring company for native speakers. So it's conversational English. I just get to speak to people like non-native English speakers. I help correct their English. Sometimes I will like proofread assignments or emails or letters to make sure that the English has like the correct grammar, to make sure spelling's correct and that the sentence flows smoothly. Sometimes I listen to students read stories and make sure their pronunciation's okay. So yeah, I do that. I've also just created a profile on Superprof. So I'll put those links in in the video description. I'm also doing some freelancing work through a website called upwork.com. So all of these links I'll put in, just trying out different freelancing kind of opportunities. So most of my work experience in the past has been in customer service. And there's a lot of customer service opportunities for freelancing, a lot of remote work, especially now with COVID. So if you are looking for ways to earn money, because this person specifically said that they're very comfortable in their job, I think in Australia, which I can definitely relate to. Yeah, you just have to look at the remote work opportunities, companies that will let you work remotely, but keeping in mind that you have to make sure you're legally allowed to work based on your entry requirements or your entry visa, or however you've come to India. You need to make sure you're legally able to work. So I am now legally able to work, and I think it has just opened up my world completely to so many different opportunities. Finally, this last question, I'm just a little bit confused by the wording, but I think what they're trying to say is living in India is hard enough without like kind of adding BPD to it. Yeah, and look, I do agree. I think living in India is very, very difficult. I have a lot of other foreign friends, people like other people who are also married to Indians, or even just live here for whatever reasons. And it is very difficult. And I think, hello, I think as long as you have an awareness and know that help is available, like having, oh my gosh, can you sit? You know, for me, seeking that mental health help or mental health treatment was like the biggest shift for me. It was the biggest change for me to adjusting to my life here. I don't know where I would be right now, or what kind of person I would be, or what kind of life I would have if I didn't get that help. So I think knowing that it's okay to seek help and it's okay to seek treatment. And, you know, I've talked about this before. You don't have to be diagnosed with a mental disorder or a mental illness to get therapy, to get help. Like, you can just speak to a therapist or a counselor if you want to, like, just talk about your life, talk about your decisions. Maybe you're stuck on some certain decisions in your life and you need a second opinion. You know, you don't have to have like depression or anxiety or, you know, mental health disorders like BPD in order to seek treatment. If you haven't watched my interview with a licensed therapist, licensed counsellor here in India, I'll link it up top, because we do go through a lot of really important information. And Misha suggested a few different websites as well on how to seek treatment in India, and also how to talk to your family about wanting to get help. So I think those are some really important tips and things that she spoke about. So yeah, look, while being in India is definitely really, really difficult for a lot of reasons, having BPD thrown into the mix definitely made it a lot harder. But, you know, I'm feeling really good now, and I feel like I'm really thriving. And India is the other part of me. You know, it's the other part of my heart, and it's the other part of who I am now. And, you know, I wouldn't change that. All right, so that is everything. Those are all the questions. I don't think there was any other questions that I got asked, but yeah, if you enjoyed this video, let me know. Hit the like button, click subscribe. I really need to get used to saying this spiel. Anyway, if you liked the video, hit like, let me know what you liked about it. And if you want to see more of these kind of videos, like asking my followers to ask me a question, and also anonymously, if you want to keep it private, that's okay. Yeah, let me know, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.